the symphony between the notes. The final bell rang through the crowded hallways of Hillcrest High School. As students flooded the corridors, eager to escape the long day, 17-year-old Elias Morgan lingered near the far end of the music wing, his slender fingers tapping a silent rhythm against his worn-out backpack. He wasn't in a hurry. He never was anymore. Especially not when it meant facing Ms. Bradford. Elias wasn't just another student. He was a quiet storm wrapped in a frame too lean for the strength he carried. While most kids rushed toward the buses, he watched the door to the music room, waiting for the last student, and more importantly, the teacher, to leave. Ms. Bradford exited, her sharp heels echoing through the tiled corridor, blonde hair twisted into a bun that was as tight and rigid as her personality. She locked the door behind her with the precision of someone who viewed the music room not as a sanctuary, but as her personal kingdom. A kingdom where Elias did not belong. Still hanging around, Morgan, came a gruff voice. It was Mr. Hanley, the janitor, pushing his cart with a slow creak. "Just waiting for my ride," Elias said, though they both knew the last bus had pulled out 20 minutes earlier. "Right," Hanley grunted, sliding a key from his ring and handing it to Elias without another word. "You've got 45 minutes. Don't touch anything sacred." The music room, now dimly lit by dusk streaming through tall windows, transformed into something otherworldly once empty. The silence felt like reverence. Elias approached the Steinway Grand, donated by an alumnus who'd made it big on Broadway, and exhaled deeply. His back twinged, the memory of a shove against a metal music stand still fresh despite the months that had passed. He hadn't told anyone what really happened. Not the nurse, not Principal Simmons, not even his grandmother who raised him. And certainly not the counselor who chalked up his silence to adolescent introversion. What had happened wasn't just a shove. It was a warning. "You will not defy me in my classroom," Ms. Bradford had snapped that day, her voice slicing through the air like a conductor's baton. She had yanked him back by the collar when he refused to sit on the piano bench, because he physically couldn't, and the crack of his spine meeting the stand had sounded like punishment. Or a verdict. No disciplinary action had followed. After all, there were no witnesses willing to speak up, and Elias's refusal to make a scene had been interpreted as indifference. But that pain followed him home, down the hallways, into his sleep, and, most painfully, into the one place where he found peace, music. At home, he shared a two-room apartment with his grandmother. His bed was a mattress on the floor, surrounded by stacks of borrowed music theory books and scrap paper littered with half-finished compositions. A second-hand keyboard sat atop milk crates, several keys dead, others sticky with wear. Still, it was his temple. "Nana, I'm home," he called quietly. "You take your pills yet?" Her voice came from the kitchen. "Yeah," he lied, knowing there were only 4 left and more wouldn't come until the next disability check cleared. When the night deepened and the city fell into its lull, Elias opened his notebook and scribbled the first few notes of a new movement. His symphony, still unfinished, lived within him like an echo only he could hear. Every insult from Miss Bradford, every moment of dismissal, and every night of pain was woven into those measures. The next day, the classroom air was thick with tension. Miss Bradford's sharp voice cut through like glass. "Mr. Morgan," she snapped, "since you seem uninterested in today's lesson on chord inversions, why don't you come up and demonstrate a diminished seventh?" Elias hesitated. His back ached already. But refusal wasn't an option. "I can't sit at the bench," he said quietly. "Then you'll take a 0. He walked to the piano anyway, remained standing, and played. Not just the diminished seventh, he added a subtle, elegant resolution, a line from his own symphony that slipped out involuntarily. For a brief moment, the room held its breath. "That's not what I asked for," Bradford said sharply. "It was a diminished seventh, with a variation," Elias replied. "Sit down. Now." As he returned to his seat, a loose page of his composition peeked from his backpack. Ms. Bradford's hawk eye spotted it immediately. "What's that?" "Just something I'm working on. Personal. In my classroom, there is no personal." "Hand it over." He hesitated, but he knew refusal meant a visit to the principal. Slowly, he handed it over. She scanned it, her expression shifting from condescension to surprise. "You wrote this?" "Yes, ma'am." "You expect me to believe that?" "It's mine. Plagiarism is grounds for expulsion. We'll discuss this later." After class, she refused to return his page. "You didn't write this," she repeated. "It's above your level." Later that week, Elias returned to the music room after hours again. Mr. Hanley unlocked the door with a sigh. "You've got 30 minutes. She's sniffing around. Elias knew it was risky, but the Steinway called to him. He set up the sheet music and began to play. His fingers danced through the opening lines of the third movement, his most personal yet. The room filled with the quiet, commanding sound of a symphony no one else had heard. "You think you're clever?" A voice spat from the door. "Ms. Bradford." Elias froze. "You've broken enough rules for suspension. But this is theft. These pages belong to me now. This room belongs to me. You will not use it again." He stood firm. "You can take my pages, but you can't take the music. It lives in my head." She stormed out, and the next day, Elias found himself in Principal Simmons's office. Ms. Bradford sat beside him, playing the role of the concerned educator. "I understand you've been breaking into school property," the principal began. "I didn't break in," Elias said. "The door was unlocked." "And these compositions?" The principal flipped through the pages. "They're mine. To be honest," the principal said slowly, "they're extraordinary." Ms. Bradford fumed. "They're derivative." "In any case," Simmons said, "you're banned from the music room after hours. 2 weeks detention." "But the music." "That's final." When Elias returned to the hallway, a soft voice called after him. "You need a better piano?" It was Lila Reyes, a senior and violinist. "My aunt works at the Maple Street Arts Center. They've got an upright. It's not perfect, but it's something." And it was. Elias began composing at the center every evening. One night, an older man listened outside the door. "Don't stop," he said. "That's something real." His name was Mr. Bennett, a retired jazz arranger. "You ever heard your music with real orchestration?" "Only in my head," Elias replied. "Then let's fix that." Bennett introduced him to digital scoring software. Together, they transformed Elias's piano lines into full orchestral pieces. It wasn't perfect, but it was alive. And then, fate intervened. Dr. Aria Langston, director of the State Youth Symphony program, stopped by the center. Bennett arranged a private performance. "You wrote that?" she asked after listening. "Yes, ma'am." "You're entering the Young Composers Showcase?" "I need a school endorsement." "I'll talk to your principal." The next week, Elias stood in Principal Simmons's office as Dr. Langston laid out the story. The injury, the dismissal, the music. Ms. Bradford tried to defend herself. "You silence talent," Dr. Langston replied. "You should be ashamed." Ms. Bradford was placed on leave. Elias received the endorsement and a key to the music room. For 3 weeks, he poured everything into that symphony. His pain, his joy, his defiance. When he stood on the stage of the State Philharmonic Hall, listening to a full orchestra breathe life into his notes, Elias felt a completeness that no apology could replicate. His grandmother cried. Bennett smiled. Ms. Bradford sat quietly in the back, a silent witness to what she had almost destroyed. When the final chord rang out, the room erupted. A standing ovation. A voice finally heard. A symphony, once silenced, now eternal.